This video is for people who are considering sailing at Cedar Key, Florida. I'll go over some of the logistics and advice that I've gained from sailing there over the years. Let's start with where it is. If I zoom out here, you can see Cedar Key here is in Florida. It's up about 2.5 hours north of Tampa on this peninsula that sticks out here. And there's Tampa down there. And it's in the Gulf of Mexico. If we zoom in, kind of sits out all by itself here off of 9819. And if we zoom in, there's a number of little keys and places you can go. But it's made up of 4 main keys. They're kind of arranged in a box, north, south, east, west. Up in the northeast corner, you have Atsena, Otie. And then over to the west, in the northwest corner, you have North Key. And then down here in the southwest corner, you have Seahorse. In the southeast corner, you have Snake. So those are the 4 main keys that you can go to. You can explore others, though. Let's start with where to launch. The public launch is here on the edge of town. It's down, I believe, Dock Street, but it's easy to find. There's actually 2 ramps. There's what they call the inside ramp, which is right here. And it's inside because it's inside this protected area here. And then this one over here they call the outside ramp. Now, the inside ramp is much easier to use. It's a much more gentle slope here. I might give you a view of that in a second. The problem is this bridge over here. It's very low. If you're going to use the inside ramp, you've got to have your mast down essentially. Now, if you do go out under the bridge, you can land over here on this beach. It's adequate. It can be a little rocky in there, depending on the state of the tide. But you can row or motor over and set up over there, and then you have access to the Gulf and sailing. A street view. There we go. So that's what the inside ramp looks like. Again, you can see it's very calm, and you can see the low bridge you have to get under over there, and there's floating docks on both sides. So it's a nice option if it's easy for you to motor or row over and put your mast up. Now, if you use the outside ramp, which is more convenient because your mast can be up and you're just out and sailing, the problem is it's a very kind of strange setup. It's not that friendly. You have these walls on the side here. See that corrugated steel wall with the wood cap, and then there's a gap over to the floating docks, and there's all these pilings in the way. So it's difficult to launch by yourself. On the right, there's a fixed dock, which depending on the state of tide can be just right or too high or too low. But either way, it's hard to do by yourself. With 2 people, it's not too bad. You do, if it's busy, there are clammers here. These are watermen working people on the water, and they don't want you to clog up the ramp for very long. So you want to be efficient or be able to get your boat out of the way so you're not clogging the ramp. So those are your 2 options for launching, inside or outside, and the advantages and disadvantages of each. Now, if you're going to stay in town in a rental, a condominium, or a hotel of some type, there's some over here. You can look into them. They're easy enough to find. Where to put your boat can be a little problematic. Like these condos over here, I believe this is Old Fenimore. You can pull them up or anchor them right offshore here. And some of the shoreline's amenable to that. But if you go much away from the shore, it's muddy. and it's a muck, soft mud that you'll sink into your waist almost if you step into it. So you do got to pay attention. You also have to pay attention to the tides, because when the tide goes out, this is very flat. It'll go out for a long period and very far out. And if you don't time it right, you could be waiting a long time to get your boat floating again. So just be aware of that. Some people will actually pull their boat every day if they're staying on the land, and they find that that's actually the least amount of hassle because of some of these difficulties with the muck and finding a good place to keep the boat. Now, if you're not staying in town and you want a dinghy cruise or a small boat cruise and stay out at the Keys, which is what I like to do, I'm going to give you an overview of that. So the first key you'll come to is Atsena, Otie. This is very close to the ramp. It'll only take you 15 minutes to sail over here. Usually people land up here on the northwest corner, and there's a nice little beach there. Little sand spit coming out, over here. But this is really nice to land on here and to hang out on. When you're on Atsena, you're actually allowed to hike into Atsena. There's a trail that starts over here by the bathrooms, and it goes to a graveyard actually here on Atsena. And in the wintertime, this is a nice hike. When the weather's warmer, when you get to the graveyard, you might just fall into one of the waiting graves from blood loss from all of the mosquitoes that have drained you. It is not a pleasant walk when it is warm, but in the wintertime, it's really quite nice. Now, Atsena is one of the few islands that you can go on the interior. Most of the other keys, they allow you to land, but they don't want you to go in really past the beaches. They don't want you to go into the interior and bother any wildlife. You cannot camp on any of these keys. You can anchor right off of them, but you're not allowed to go in and set camp up. So that is one of the restrictions you need to be aware of here at Cedar Key. But that's Atsena. Now, I have anchored off of Atsena off the backside here, up close to these beaches here. And that's usually, I do that when I've got winds coming from the northeast like this, or from the east. But when they start to come westerly, northwesterly, west, southwest, this isn't such a good choice. The seas can be a little bit rougher. You're getting blown into the shore along it. So it's not my favorite choice for those winds. But like I said, northeast, easterly winds, northerly, I have anchored out close to shore here and had fine night if it wasn't too strong and rough. Next, I'm going to go over to what's usually my favorite key to stay at, and that's straight to the west here, like 5 miles or so away, and that is North Key. So North Key is interesting. Again, not too far to get here. You do have to pay attention to some of the shoals around here. You can see them here. They're all like, there's one, and over in the town here, there's a shoal that runs. You can kind of see the shadow of it there, kind of along that cove. Just if you have a deeper draft boat, just pay attention. It's on your charts. I've never gotten stuck here. I've bumped bottom plenty of times, but it's not so treacherous, but just pay attention. So if you go out to North Key, the most, I think, wonderful part is on the backside here, the west side. So when you come around here, you got to look out for this shoal here. If the tide's low, you got to clear that by a bit because it's very shallow. But again, I've never gotten stuck there. I've always gotten over it. As you come around, one of the first places you might want to stay is on this sand beach, but that would really only be if the winds were from, again, like the south, southeast, southwest. Once they start coming here from the west or anything from the north, it's not your first choice. Also, this area changes quickly. The sand's constantly shifting, building up, or getting broken down. So for example, this, I have stayed over on this finger here, which is nice when the winds are from the southwest. But the last time I went there, just last weekend, this had grown a little bit, and this is all oysters over here, and it's very close to the oysters now, so there's not that much room there between the oysters and the sand anymore, so that made it a little less desirable. But most of the time I end up going to this beach here, just off of it. And if you look, you can see in the water here, these shapes, these are oyster bars. At low tide, you'll see them popping out of the water. But be aware, there's an opening right here, and it's kind of like in the middle here. If you look at these trees here, there's a couple, just two trees there. If you just go to the left of those a little bit, you'll go right through that opening, and you'll be fine. Again, great place if the winds are easterly at all, northeasterly, southeasterly. Again, if they're westerly, you might consider a different location because you're open to the Gulf there and the seas can build. Now you can come on the other side here. This cove here, this little horseshoe cove, very protected. It's got these two little arms here, you know, these oyster bars. But when the wind is from the west, boy, are you protected in there. Do pay attention to oysters. That's an oyster bar there, and there's oysters here. And this shore is a little bit rockier than on the other side. But I've anchored in here and spent a night in here, and it's very nice. It tends to be a little bit nicer kind of over in this area here than over here or over here. But you can hunt around for that if you'd like. But you can see very protected and quite a few winds there, westerly, northwesterly, even northerly, etc. So there's North Key. Nice place, beautiful place to visit. Again, you're allowed to land and walk along the shore. They don't want you going in the interior and disturbing the wildlife. Next, I'm going to come to Seahorse. I really haven't spent much time anchoring off of Seahorse. One of the things you have to be aware of is in the nesting season, which is like March through June, I think, you're supposed to stay like 200 feet away from, well, it used to be Seahorse. They've had a strange things where all the birds that used to live in Seahorse have left and gone over to Snake. But I still think you're supposed to stay away from Seahorse in the nesting season. But if it's not nesting season, there are places that you can come in. Like over here, this would be fine, you know, with an easterly wind back behind that point there, or northeasterly. I have landed back here. There's a lighthouse on Seahorse. It's one of the, I think this point is like the highest point in Florida. There's this natural sand dune here. And there's a lighthouse up there. And there's a landing right back there. The lighthouse isn't open to the public, though they do have a couple open houses a year. So when it is, I have landed back here and explored the lighthouse. So that can be fun. But check to see if that's available. The next major key is over here, Snake. And again, so it was very strange. A lot of the birds abandoned Seahorse that had been the main rookery for a long time. And all of a sudden, like one day, they just all left and most of them went over to Snake. So during nesting season, you don't want to disturb the birds. And there's posts out around this that ask you to stay away from it. But out of nesting season, it's fine to go here. I was just here. One of the fun things to do here at Snake is to go through this little passage here. You can do that. And that's just beautiful in there. And again, you'll often see all sorts of birds, etc. I saw a bald eagle when I was there last time, but ibis and white pelicans, you name it, you'll see all sorts of birds. But Snake is nice to sail to or sail around. I just recently landed over here on this beach. And in fact, I anchored off of this beach just last weekend. And that was because winds were from the southwest going west. And Again, as you can see, that's not a bad choice. When the ones were like this and like this, it was very nice and protected there. Though I will tell you, the current really ran very strong along here, and that did actually drag my stern anchor a little bit ahead of my boat. And there's also a lot of dolphin activity here. I think it's because of the current. There's a lot of fish, and the dolphin are feeding there. So we had quite a dolphin show there, especially in the middle of the night. But that's another nice option for you here, is over to Snake Key. So those are the main keys that you can go to. Like I said, especially if your boat has any type of draft at all, look out for these shoals like that one there. They can get very, very shallow, like under a foot. So just pay attention. Also, some of the shoals are oystery, so they're not all soft. So do pay attention. That's one of the challenges here at Cedar Key. But there's some of the main areas that you would want to go to. You can also explore over here. This is Dog Island over here. And it's hard to see on the satellite photos here, but in this area here, yeah, you can start to see them. See all those little posts? This is the aquaculture where they raise clams. So I think they're low enough underwater that you don't hit them, but you don't want to be sailing over those. There's rows and rows of them here. You'll see them, but you can bypass them, sort of going in close to shore here or outside of them here. But they're obvious enough. You'll see them when you go by. But you can come back here, and you could consider anchoring back in these areas here if the wind was right. But again, pay attention to the oyster bars. They're pretty thick back here, but you can get around them. I've landed on this beach over here and walked this beach before, but again, all those little things you're seeing there are oyster bars. So pay attention. Very interesting reef formation here. I think it might be called Corrigan's Reef. I can't remember for sure right now, but it's this very weird, like skeleton-y looking thing. And I've sailed here. I've even considered anchoring out here. I haven't done it, but there's all these little, you can sail around this, but there's little places you can kind of go into and get protection. You can land on these also and walk around on them. And there's some more over here. So that's kind of an interesting thing to sail in and around. I've done that. But I haven't gone much further away from Cedar Key than that, other than a little bit of exploring over here on the west side. I have sailed to a couple of these little beaches here, and you're actually not that far away from the Sewanee River and the town of Sewanee. You can get there and back in a day with the right wind. So that's my quick little overview of Cedar Key. One thing I didn't mention, the ramps here. You pay to park. There's a little kiosk, and it's $6, and it says $6 for 24 hours. But there's another sign that says launching fee, and I've talked to the attendants here and the police when I've been here multiple days, because you can't buy a multi-day ticket. I've never gotten a ticket for parking and keeping the car there overnight for 2 nights. And they explained to me, they said, as long as you're launching once and retrieving once, that's what you're paying for, not paying for parking. So you shouldn't have a problem if you park and keep your vehicle there for a couple of days. I never have in all the years I've been there, and I've got assurances from the attendants when I've seen them that that's the case. But that's important to know. All right, hopefully that gives you some information that will help if you decide to go to Cedar Key. The town has other charms. It has restaurants and things that it can go to. Though currently, this is 2025, it's still in a state of recovery from last year's hurricanes. It had the biggest storm surge ever in 2024, and it took out a number of little hotels and restaurants, etc. So you do want to check and make sure anything you want to go see is open. But there are restaurants that are now open along the main drag here and back here on whatever street that is right there. But you can see them. But if you're not certain, you can call and make sure that anything you're interested in is open. All right. Happy sailing.